All right, 3, 2, 1. Fuck this movie. I'm not even going to quote it. I hate this shit. All right. Hello, everybody. Oh, shit. I'll censor that one. It might be in the first 8 seconds, just so we don't get demonetized.
Oh, no, that was a good intro. I love that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fuck that shit. I don't like it. I was like, I was about to look up a quote. I was like, I don't respect this. What quote?
Damn.
We're going on an adventure?
Insult.
Yeah, fuck it.
All right. Yeah, setting the tone.
My sanity went on an adventure and never came back.
Yeah.
Who else is
So
here?
you watched the extended ones for this? Oh, sorry. I'm Ralph.
I unfortunately watched the extended ones, yeah.
Yeah, so did I. I'm Ralph. I watched the extended cuts. I feel the same way.
I'm Alex Raichi, and I didn't actually watch the extended ones for this viewing, but I've seen the extended versions once or twice before, around when they came out. So it wouldn't be a new thing for me anyway. But yeah, The Hobbit, guys. Nice. Another trilogy episode.
We got here.
I wonder if I could just add like a few seconds to the beginning of the video before the intro starts of just nothing. I bet I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't count as the first 8 seconds of the video if you just shift everything over. You know what's really funny? There at a certain point in time when they started doing the demonetize and like manual
Best
checks.
of language. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this has been going on for a while. But as a gay boy, there were some old gaming channel videos where I used the F slur.
Yes.
Because I guess I'm allowed to. And it was like right at the beginning of like one of the videos. And it was, in context, it was like a funny thing. And I was like, how do I get this monetized? How do I get this monetized? And I basically just put like 2 hours of like a still image and the word test and nothing at the beginning of my video, and then sent it for approval for monetization, and it got confirmed suitable for monetization, and then I used the YouTube editor to cut out the first 2 hours. Yeah. I don't think you can do that anymore, though. That was a particular moment in time where
No, but some of the like little tricks people do to get around this, like, uploading like 10 copies of the same video and like just going with whichever one gets the green first.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand really what the rules even are, because it used to kind of be as long as there's no swearing in that first kind of like 30-second range, you'd be all right. But it seems to have like changed recently in the past few weeks. Or
I'll have to read all the
certain words seem to be like graded as more intense or whatever, and will flag things. And I don't know, man. It's such a nightmare trying to keep track of.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Like a lot of people were complaining about the swearing in the first 8 seconds, but I thought it was 30 seconds before that. Like
that's what I thought too.
Is it 8 seconds now?
Yeah, I think it's like only 8 seconds. I think it's like not as. I don't know if it's more restricted or less. I'm just. I know people are complaining. Yeah, and that there's changes and things are new.
Yeah, the intro song is 5 seconds long, so you could have like 3 seconds is quiet, and then you say the thing. That would be fine.
How about just like 3 seconds of me staring at the camera?
Yeah, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got it.
Review of The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. I'll make sure to comply with the guidelines. You know what's really funny about that? Like the 2 hours of nothing that I cut out? Like technically on their end, it says that it was manually reviewed. So if there was something objectionable in the video, even in the last 15 minutes of the 2 hour and 15-minute long video, like technically, I didn't do anything wrong because according to YouTube, they went through the whole video, right? So...
When they say manual review, what does that actually mean? Like genuinely?
It means nothing.
By who?
Yeah, and what are they
who manually
doing?
Reviewed it?
Yeah, I didn't believe it for a second.
By what criteria? Yeah. Right.
They skipped through it like me in Oscar movies.
Was it Susan? Did Susan review it?
Manually.
I hope so, yeah. Every single video uploaded to YouTube.
All right, so if anybody's curious about our takes on the Oscar nominations, we're going to talk about that next episode. We got a pretty long episode in front of us with 3 films. Extended.
Trilogies.
Which ones of us watched the extended versions, first of all?
I did. Well, we all did, Alex said. But like,
we all did?
Yeah,
okay.
These episodes take like a whole... Yeah. When we talk about trilogies, it takes like a whole episode. It's very dense. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, so let's get let's just jump into it.
Yeah, should we do this? Let's jump into it,
beautiful
then.
bastards.
Who wants to describe like the plot synopsis of the first one?
Well, it's Alex's fault.
Yeah,
so.
I guess it's my. I'll take the responsibility of forcing you guys to watch 12 hours of Hobbit movies. But yeah, let's rewind to 2012. Yeah, post the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, MGM and a couple other studios wanted more money with what content from the Tolkien universe was left, and obviously the eye peered over to the innocent little kid's book being The Hobbit, the one that started it all, the one that Tolkien wrote as a children's book for his children at the time. So it has a kind of kiddie, lighter tone than the Lord of the Rings trilogy we know.
For sure.
So immediately there's a bunch of just conflicting creative ideas and all these different hands in the pot, all with different motivations and ideals. And yeah, it all starts with that 2012 Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. All three of them directed by Peter Jackson, as the original trilogy was. Same writers, even Fran Walsh comes back, Philippa Boyens and Peter Jackson. And a lot of the crew, as far as the special effects, with Weta Workshop, and a bunch of the people that were responsible for the Lord of the Rings being as good as it is, were there. But I guess we can get into the details of it, because it's not as simple as just one small thing. So yeah, what do we think of an unexpected journey? Because I feel like for me, top level, these Hobbit movies, there's obviously not enough content for a trilogy.
Right.
Trying to Lord of the Ringsify The Hobbit just is a bad creative stem to start all this from. The more you think about it, the less sense it makes. But I do think the films get worse as they go along. I think Unexpected Journey is the strongest, and I don't think it's a total wash. There is some good stuff in here. Each movie has at least, one okay scene, or I think they have a stronger density of good scenes starting off, and it gets lesser and lesser as these films go on. But yeah, it's been interesting revisiting these movies, because around the time they came out, I was quite into them. I like being able to revisit because the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the holy grail of nerd content, as it were, and being able to revisit is and was kind of fun in 2012, being a bit younger and less critical of things. But watching it now, a lot of notes on this one.
Yeah, same. You're right about it not being enough material to make 3 movies out of, because it's like with the Lord of the Rings, those books are long. They were actually condensing stuff that actually worked better, because here you can tell
the extended versions were justified.
Sure. Here you can tell what they added. It's so obvious. They're oh, that stuff can be cut out. That's stuff that's just it's prequel stuff for Lord of the Rings, basically. It's set up for Desolation of Smaug, which they have, all this stuff comes back, Saruman and whatever. Yeah, it's just I don't know. The movie's too fucking long. I felt like I was watching the extended cut the first time I saw it, in the theater, because it's so long. And there's not much of a difference. I did note the differences between the two cuts. There's not much of a difference between the extended cut and the regular cut of the first one. Yeah, Unexpected Journey. It's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There's a couple extra scenes and stuff. There's more of a difference in Desolation of Smaug and the third one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It does feel too long. People complain about these being 3 movies. I don't even have an issue with that, really. People said they should have been 2. I think it works fine as 3.
Make 3 30-minute movies.
3 short, 3 90-minute movies, or
YouTube
maybe
videos.
2 hours.
Little shorts.
I kind of like the structure of them. They're kind of cool, which we'll get into maybe later on. I like the cliffhanger, in the second one, but yeah, it's it's the pacing, and also I heard about some production trouble behind the scenes. I think the pre-production was very rushed, and
yeah, you're exactly right.
Kind of tell watching.
The big drama was that Del Toro was originally lined up to do 2 Hobbit movies, part 1, part 2. They they sunk, I think, a year and a half worth of time into pre-production with Guillermo, but then because of all these like acquisitions and mergers and MGM like going bankrupt or something, all of these like moving parts made it so he wasn't willing to sacrifice the time that it would have taken for this project to eventually get moving under him still being there. So it like just eventually worked out with Peter Jackson having to return, even with all the bad blood that is sat there with. He was like suing New Line or something because of like residuals from. It was all like a crazy complicated situation, and the ultimate kind of result is a trilogy of movies that had I think it was 3 months pre-production time. So they were basically doing a lot of stuff and making it up as they were going along, as opposed to I think it was close to 4 years pre-production they had for that original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the difference is night and day, and you can see it just on that alone. Like.
Exactly. You could tell, like, especially as the movies go along, they do feel more rushed. I noticed more so in the third one. The effects felt very rushed. And yeah, there's an over-reliance on CGI because they didn't have time to make all those sets and props like they did in Lord of the Rings. And yeah.
Even just in scenes like indoors, in the same locations that we've seen in the original, like, it's supposed to be evoking the same emotions. What's crazy about this is, like, this is kind of like a nostalgia bait movie before we really got into the decade of nostalgia bait. This is like one of the earlier ones. And so when I watched it in theaters when I was younger, I didn't really have, I guess, the sense for it, or maybe I wasn't as familiar with the Lord of the Rings movies, but I could definitely, you know, now after having seen the original trilogy so many times and now being in this culture of like references and like member berries, I saw so much of it. And even in those scenes where it's like, okay, yeah, Gandalf like hits his head on the fucking thing in his house or whatever, even in those scenes, they still do this annoying thing where instead of using forced perspective, they have them in front of a green screen. And it's like, okay, well, the movie 10 years ago did some really cool shit. And it's just people in a room, right? It's not anything complicated that justifies the use of a green screen. This is just rushed and lazy. And it looks worse, noticeably. The lighting is off. You know, like, you should be able to tell that that's what's happening. And it gives you such a better appreciation for the original trilogy and just all the craftsmanship and coordination and planning that went into it. It's like
Ian McKellen was sad like filming those scenes because, you know, he was in a green screen room. He was alone with, you know, he wasn't on set with those guys when he was like sad about it. I'm like,
so it hurts the performance too, even when you get down to that kind of level. Because obviously, like that original Lord of the Rings trilogy, the whole like behind the scenes stuff that were on those DVDs and whatnot, was like this expansive, like a bunch of how-tos and what they were doing. They did do a similar thing for these Hobbit movies. Each one of them has like hours and hours worth of surprisingly kind of candid behind the scenes stuff. And yeah, as you're saying, there is all this stuff of like just these decisions of having to split it up, and Peter Jackson clearly like being miserable, and just the candor of the cast as like they don't know when they're filming the first movie, like it was only a few months before that first movie even came out, An Unexpected Journey, that they decided to split it into 3 movies, so that clearly like all these different strings were like going in different directions, pulling this project every which way, and it's like it's just like a mess overall.
I think a lot of people talk about like the behind the scenes troubles with this movie. I also watched, in addition to these 3 movies, I watched the animated one. Is it Ralph Bakshi?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did?
How did you find it?
I didn't get the time to do it.
I've never seen the Bakshi.
I watched that just to compare like the pacing, because I thought, man, these are so slow.
No,
like I wonder how he told that story. Was it Ralph Bakshi or
Ralph Bakshi did?
I think it was, right?
The Lord of the Rings animated one, but the Hobbit one was made by 2 other people. There were 2 Hobbit movies made by 2 other people, and it's.
But was he like involved in it, like producer, something like that?
I thought it was Ralph Bakshi too, but I think that there was like some weird dispute between them, like a lawsuit. So I don't think he was. I'll have to look it up, but it was directed by 2 other people.
It's a similar, like,
it's in the style,
animation style. You know, the animation style. Yeah, so pardon me. Yeah, like confusing it or whatever. Yes. But like, right, like in this movie, it takes like 40 minutes for them to get out of Bilbo's house and go on the adventure, like all meeting each other. In the animated one, it literally takes like 5 minutes and they're out of the house. It's like crazy.
Yeah,
like you're night and day. Like, oh my god,
it's so
much better.
Pathetic, especially when you watch all three of the films in terms of like what they're setting up and how these things function, because all of that time that they're spending in the house, what it seems like the implication of what they're doing is developing these dwarf characters and giving them
but you don't know any
more
of
screen
them.
time.
You can't tell me, I don't know any
by
of
the
them.
end of the third movie,
characterizing them. Yeah,
sorry.
The only character's name I knew by the end of the third movie was Bofer. D's nuts.
Yeah.
That's why.
No, that's what's so strange about it, because it is like 9+ hours of content, but like, what characters and stories do you really remember from the trilogy? Because it's like a fair amount actually kind of happens, but the structure of the story is like where it really just doesn't make sense or work. Because in The Hobbit, it's kind of just this string of like vignettes of like, oh, the troll thing now, and then there's the Goblin King and the elves in the woods, and there's nothing really that's like, it's not like the adventure is kept cohesive like Lord of the Rings, where it has way more of like a distinct kind of structure per each one of those big books, and like each one of them has like a big set piece towards the end, and it like flows a certain way, but it just doesn't make sense with the Hobbit movies to split it up that way. And then you have these weird issues where having to split that small story up into this trilogy means you get these strange uneven movies where it kind of rears its ugly head towards the end of An Unexpected Journey, and there's just a recurring problem in each one of the kind of final acts where they have like a big set piece of some kind, whether it be the trees on the mountainside and the wolves in An Unexpected Journey, or that scene in Smaug where the dwarves like reactivate the smelting thing and build this whole gold statue, and it's all just like filler basically. And it just bogs down the whole story, and it's so frustrating, because it's like, as someone who's a fan of like the quaintness of that original Hobbit book, and seeing like how some of the scenes do translate it well, like if we're talking about An Unexpected Journey, the Gollum scene is pretty much perfect, down to the dialogue and everything.
Yeah,
yes,
love that scene.
That was the standout scene for the movie for me.
Excellent scene.
Yeah. And it is like a little taste of what it could have been if they could have reeled back this project and kind of, what's in the title, like it's not the Lord of the Rings, like the name implies like something broad and big and epic. It's the Hobbit. It's about one little character, and it's like, the fun of this tiny little guy going into this great big world and everything he learns from going out into it.
Little people, big world.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, that's like, those are the best parts of the movie, is like just following Bilbo, because he's a great character, and I loved Martin Freeman in the movie.
He was
thought
great
his performance was excellent. Absolutely.
Yeah, he worked
because
really
before
well
I didn't really know him as like anything. I'm like, oh, he's the guy from like the British Office or whatever. But here I'm like, no, he's a great actor. He was such a great character in this movie. I love following him. Those are the best parts of the movie, is when it's focused on his journey. That unexpected journey and that perspective, but they just get lost in this Lord of the Rings prequel crap.
Yeah. Nearly every time the point of view shifts from Martin Freeman, it suffers. And that definitely comes more apparent in Desolation, where suddenly you're breaking away to have these scenes of Legolas. You're breaking away to have this like necromancer subplot and all this kind of like fluff from the appendices of Lord of the Rings. It's like, okay, I guess technically this stuff is like going on in the timeline and in the lore, but it does just feel like you're shoving this in to justify the trilogy, to justify the scope and this approach, when just something intimate and would have just been so much more suitable for this story, and could have like they'd have to put the greed aside, which I know like is just impossible and would never happen when we're talking about franchises and big trilogies of this scope and scale, because I just get kind of hung up on the whole thing of like, man, when these movies were being made, like Peter Jackson, even after making the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he couldn't swing his balls around enough and kind of say like, I need more time for this, or like he did, like
that's weird. But I guess just an unfortunate reality and shouldn't be surprising at the same time.
That's the thing. Whereas when you hear about the complicated like business, like you can understand it from that level, but then
we own you.
I don't know.
Fucking Frank Darabont and AMC, and
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter how much you prove yourself. Creating the most successful property that the studio has ever seen. They're like, no, you can't have the resources to make it like you did last time. We're trying to save money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we reward them by seeing it in theaters.
The pure numbers game of it probably did work out in their favor. Like, just the Battle of Five Armies, if I look at its gross worldwide, 962 million, and that's like obscene for that movie alone. So like they're making billions off this franchise, but I don't know, it seems short-sighted, because surely it's best for everyone if you have a product as good as something like The Lord of the Rings, where this is going to stay in pop culture for decades and decades, and it's going to kind of, I guess they don't have the patience or the foresight for that.
Here's the sad reality about this, is that it doesn't even matter if The Hobbit stays in the culture, because they can sell it alongside The Lord of the Rings in box sets. It'll still continue to sell like hotcakes. There will still be so many people that even if they weren't sold as a box set, they would feel compelled to watch and continue them because of its association with the other better films. So it's not even short-sighted financially, really. They could be the biggest pieces of shit ever, and people will still continue buying them and watching them, right?
Yeah, but there's Lord of the Rings fans who are going to love them no matter what. There's a fan base for this movie. They still like it. I think it has positive reviews, except the last one.
I mean,
really.
I think that there was a bit more hype when it was coming out in theaters. I think it was one of you remember how like everybody pretended to like Suicide Squad when that came out? And now nobody does.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, it's like one of those. I think it's this,
that was funny.
Let's coin this. The
Suicide first one
Squad
was like
effect.
a big deal when it came out. Yeah, but like the second one, I don't know many people who like saw the second one in theaters. I know like everyone saw the first one, but then they just kind of dropped off after that.
I mean, I think they all made a lot of money theatrically. I watched all of them in theaters.
Well, they all did well. I just mean like the conversation around them. They just kind of like fizzled out in terms of like culture.
There's nothing to talk about really, because
unlike Lord of the Rings, where those like got better, arguably as they went along.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it wasn't a 11 Oscar win for Battle of the Five Armies.
Absolutely.
Right.
I would like to bring up the 48 frames per second.
Yes.
Another
drama.
That was a big deal. I think this is like the first movie.
Films. Yeah, there was definitely the first high frame rate films that I had seen. That's how I'd watched them in theaters. But I did not watch them this way at home. I don't even know if the UHD Blu-rays do 48 frames per second at home. I don't even know if they
could turn the motion smooth thing on if you, if you want to do that. You could just do that. It's the same effect. Yeah, I don't get it for this.
Well, I mean,
personally,
what's weird about it is I feel like I was a lot more charitable to these films partially because of that. Because as I was watching in 48 frames per second, there would be so many shots where I'm like, okay, that looks weird, but it's probably because I'm not used to the high frame rate. And so I'd make those excuses in my head, which is, it's a normal excuse to make. I'm relatively charitable sometimes, I think. Maybe people would disagree. But like now I'm watching them not in 48 frames per second, and I'm like, oh, that shot looks bad because it's a bad effect. That shot looks like that's just clunky animation. That's just bad lighting. That's just it not feeling like it's a part of the environment. That has nothing to do with the frame rate. And so, I was a bit more charitable towards it. All three of these films when they came out in theaters because of things like that. And also, I think just I don't know, like the spectacle and the sound and the theater and just seeing something in that type of environment and having the fan and hype culture surrounding it can really influence I guess both expectations and the experience in some way.
Yeah, well, I can factor that into my rating too, to some extent. Like, yeah, if people are excited about it, it's a good theater experience. Yeah, I would rate a movie higher based on that. Like, when we see movies in festivals, people are excited. I'm sure that has some impact on their ratings or whatever.
Yeah, it depends on the movie.
Yeah, but in terms, I don't know what I was going to say. There's just like so much to talk about with these, but I feel like the actual movies themselves, like the story isn't that interesting. It's more like the behind the scenes stuff that's interesting about it. And like, yeah, comparing it like to the extended ones or so on.
I feel like you're kind of touching on this earlier, I think, Ralph, where the 3-movie thing didn't need to kind of pull it down as much as it did if they actually acted on like a bunch of the setups they lay down, especially in An Unexpected Journey. It's mostly a bunch of setup. They're setting up like what the goal for the characters are and where they're going, and they've got the division between certain characters, and there's clearly like some room or growth as to like what Adam was saying, where you assume that it's going to be about like the bond between the Hobbit and this lowly group of dwarves, which they've clearly put a lot of kind of passion into, giving them all like unique silhouettes and different like costume designs and all the different facial hair, and they've got like the different families where they've got like the hot dwarves, which are clearly have more lines of dialogue because they don't have like beards covering their mouths all the way to like
Chad dwarves.
The ones who just look like normal guys, right?
Yeah, they're just like
who have love triangles. Yeah,
Chad's an incel.
Yeah, and then the incel
so
dwarves
silly.
like Bomber on the other end, who's just kind of there for comedy and. Yeah, but if it just could have like followed through or done something, because they kind of throw all these like ideas out there and things that kind of are improvements in adapting that original book, The Hobbit, being like just adding little MacGuffins like the Arkenstone, for example. That's like a big thing in the movie, and it's like it has some kind of dwarven right to rule if you hold this stone, and I don't think it was in the book because like. I think in the book, like they've got like no plan really, to the point where when they get to Smaug, they just kind of like just go in one after another, just like getting one piece of gold and just kind of like funneling it out in like the least efficient way possible. So there were obviously things that needed to be kind of like tweaked and like stakes needed to be raised in a certain way. But then if you have something like the Arkenstone, which is like this key plot element, it's just a certain point in the story where it just like stops being important. Like the bard gets a hold of it, he offers it up, and for this like conflict between the 3 sides or whatever, and then like it just goes nowhere, and you never see it again. It's never brought up again, and it's like the same for a bunch of like different elements of the story like that. Like just all the stuff they had to add in, the Radagast in the woods with his rabbits pulling stuff around, and a big one for me is the kind of villain of the movie, because I guess they felt the need to add something to like be chasing the main group of characters to keep the tension up. So they have this guy Azog the Defiler, who I don't think was. I think he was kind of made for the movies. One of these kind of characters, like this character, like did exist at some point in the timeline, but he was supposed to be like killed or whatever. But they made him this lead antagonist. He's got beef with Thorin, and that's supposed to be like one of the threads over the trilogy is like him. Like, yeah, I guess that's the issue. Is the thread is just bare. There's nothing to this Azog character. I find it so boring and annoying every time you cut to him and his crew and whatever they're doing in the background, and how it's like. Yeah, he's the mustache twirling guy who screams every line. He kills his own men because he's that scary. And yeah, it just goes nowhere. It has no like grunt to it, and what he just wants to kill the dwarves because really, because he's a bad guy.
Yeah, because he's bad. Because he's a bad orc.
He's gonna defile those dwarves.
Yeah.
This so I watched this trilogy with Gael, who is a huge Lord of the Rings nerd, and he had never seen these trilogies before, and so there was some really interesting information I was able to get from him. So he'd be watching a scene like the big troll fight scene, and he'd remind me like that was just like Bilbo telling a tiny bit of a story in like one of the other books, right? And part of what you ruin by showing that whole thing is it kind of takes away the possibility of just him being like a typical unreliable narrator, or him like having exaggerated the story, and that's not what happened, sort of. But now you're just showing it, and so it's like, okay, like I guess that's what's happened, you know?
When they see the giant trolls at the campfire, that scene?
Yeah. That was also a weird scene for me because it seemed to be one of the first really obvious spots for me where the lack of communication between departments was like really showing. So there would be a point where the troll would say like, one of them would be like, grab him, and the other one would be like, he's too quick. But when the troll says he's too quick, that's before he tried grabbing Bilbo. It's before Bilbo was running. And so you have that line there where, in the context of the script, you would want that line to be after you show him being quick or them trying to grab him. But he instead says it before any of that takes place. And I'm just like, wow, that just seems like not having a cohesive vision between departments, and then people did their jobs technically, but nobody communicated with each other about like why that wouldn't work, and everybody is just expected to finish their jobs, and they did it, and now it looks weird.
Yeah,
the giant troll thing's like, it's like the same scene in the animated one. Like where Bill actually, it is the difference is kind of funny. So in the Peter Jackson one, they like take his ponies or something, right? They take the take the dwarves' horses, and then Bilbo goes to get them back. In the animated one, Bilbo finds the giant trolls or whatever, and he jacks their shit. He just steals.
He tries to like burgle from them.
Burgles. Right? He's like, I'm gonna burgle them, and then they catch him. It's like, so they were trying to make him like a little more likable. I guess that made sense. But yeah, I didn't mind that scene so much because to me that's kind of like what I wanted from a Hobbit movie. It's like a lighthearted, like Bilbo comes in, they fight some silly troll goblin things, and then like all the dwarves come in, they fight them, and then Gandalf like releases the sunlight and they freeze. Like those scenes are fun. The scene where like the rock monsters are throwing rocks at them as they're trying to get like across that cliff, like that was fun. It's like, you know, it's an adventure movie. I want to see them like run into fun characters and do fun things, and the movie just really drags whenever it's not focused on Bilbo and those things happening.
Yeah, or they do a thing where they consistently they'll stumble across or be on the right lines and just be doing something beat for beat exactly how it needs to be done and should be done, but they just don't know when to stop. Like they just keep going, they keep elaborating on a thing, like the troll scene, for example. Like it's really good and fun, and has the like silliness of like sneaking around, and then it has to turn into like a big action scene and just like keep building and building and building and like spectacle. And it's a problem with a lot of the action in these movies where there's kind of like gimmick action that doesn't really feel like it has a purpose in the story. A lot of it, or just feels there for spectacle's sake. Yeah, because like a big blockbuster has to have it, and it's not enough to have like the spiders or the trolls in and of itself. Like there also has to be a huge scene where they're running down bridges in the goblin temple or whatever, and there's like a million things moving at once. You know what I mean? Like when like the actual like good spectacle is like just Bilbo having a conversation with a CG goblin. You know, like that is the heart of it, and what is fun about this story, not the big silly spectacle. That's I know you said you just liked the big mountain guys that are like punching each other. That's more one kind of like an example of what I'm talking about, where it feels like I think that's like one line in like the book. Like it's like really like offhand mentioned. Like it's just
they weren't like exactly described like that necessarily.
Right. This whole movie is indulgent. It's just like every little thing is dragged out.
They're searching under every nook and cranny for possible source material to turn into something, just to squeeze that dry, like everything from like fucking Cimmerillion and all this other shit. They're like, please, we have to find something we can use to make this story justify the length of 3 movies. And they did it. But I mean, it's not justified, but they managed to do something, I guess.
But it's like there's continuous problems that just keep coming up that come as a result kind of that needless spectacle, like in that big stone monster thing. You could like derive kind of a fun sequence out of that, but it comes at the expense of like any kind of tension for the characters. Like it's a real thing in this movie in particular where these dwarves, they be slammed into the side of mountains while like sitting on the knee of a mountain giant, and like everyone's cool and fine. Like it feels like it's like a kind of weightless, like they're crushed by the Goblin King for like a comedic beat, and it's like I see what you're trying to lighten the tone to, I guess, be more in line with the light-hearted original story, but when you also have like these super serious, like building up the Lord of the Rings and trying to treat this as if it's the same kind of caliber of importance as that story, it just like really creates an inconsistent tone that's like all over the place.
It does feel inconsistent.
We should probably move on to the next film pretty soon. I will just say the music goes a long way. And this is something that was very different from the Lord of the Rings show. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, where they only had Howard Shore for the opening song. In this film, this trilogy, they actually had him compose the entire thing. And it goes a long way, just to have that feeling, as Jon Favreau would put it. You could put up crayon drawings and still cry if you're reminded of those other films. You're reminded of the experiences that you fondly remember from the original trilogy. So, is it manipulative? In some ways, yes. All art is manipulative to some degree. But yeah, it works, and I'm glad that they did that at least. Not the worst film ever made for the first one.
Yeah, and the new songs for like the dwarves and stuff. I like a bunch of the new compositions they did. Got to shout out the that Lindsay Ellis video though. Where
that
she
too.
Points out just in the production of splitting up the film from 2 into 3, there are like clearly moments where they've had to like plug in songs from, like using compositions from the original trilogy where like it doesn't
copy paste
make sense. Yeah, where like it was like I think the Ringwraith theme is like plugged in.
Yeah,
for like Thorin.
We noticed
those kind of
too.
stood out to me.
Yeah, weird little things like that where it's clear like, yep, they had probably a couple weeks to do something with the music in this added scene. Let's just get this done, and that's how it feels.
Setting up like a clearly established context for a musical theme throughout the first trilogy, and then using it in a completely different context, and it's like, okay, well, you've musically set up rules and expectations for how these things are. That's what a theme is. You play it under like a certain context, and if there's all of a sudden no point to it, and you're just playing the song again, like what the hell? It's not a theme anymore. It's just a song. Yeah, not the worst movie ever.
Ratings?
I give this one a high 5 out of 10, completely detached from the other two movies. On its own, just high 5 is what I gave it. There's some good things about it. It's not the most boring thing ever. Good casting, but kind of fucking disappointing. Not in any way comparable to the original trilogy in terms of quality, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a bad movie. It could have been much better though. I give the first one's 3 stars out of 5 stars.
Yeah,
so that's
I'm
6
right
out of 10.
there with you, Ralph, with the 6 out of 10, 3-star rating. Yeah, it's okay. It could have been kind of expanded on, and the payoffs and setups actually like go somewhere or mean something. But yeah, it's just too much going on. It's just the wrong angle to take. But it doesn't really start kind of falling apart for me until you get into that next movie more so. So I think it's fine. It does the job. There's more of what I liked about that Lord of the Rings trilogy in this one, kind of a bit more genuine heart than the other two to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, still not like, it doesn't come close to that original trilogy. So
1 year later.
The Desolation of Smaug, 2013.
How do you say it? Is it Smaug or Smaug?
Smaug.
I don't know.
How you say it?
Because I say everything wrong anyway. So then when you go into Tolkien words, I'm even more hopeless.
I think it might be Smaug.
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 I think that's it.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Do you remember the controversy? Do any of you remember the controversy over the difference between a dragon and a wyvern?
No.
What to do with this movie?
What is that?
Yeah, because apparently it's not a dragon.
Yeah, really?
What's the canonical difference?
Whether or not the arms are attached to the wings, or it has wings and another set of arms. So apparently what is shown in this movie, the design is not a dragon, it's a wyvern. And a bunch of people were really mad about it.
Oh, really?
Interesting. I never knew that.
That was a big controversy.
I had no idea. Wow. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I guess, there are probably bigger problems with the movie than that one. Because that's one of the few things I actually like about this movie is that Smaug introduction more so.
Smaug.
Just more so how they kind of like build him up. And like, you know, like the song in the first movie where they're singing about how he destroyed that little city, and he's built up well, I think. And the performance is really fun. But getting there, man. Oh my God.
But yeah, the Smaug scene is great. It's like the equivalent of the Gollum scene.
Yeah.
Oh, in like the first one. Yeah, I can't believe we forgot to mention this song. That's like probably one of my favorite parts of the first one is the Misty Mountain song. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a cool song.
Yeah, and it carries through as like their main theme. It's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the standout new composition for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also forgot to mention in the first film, it was kind of a weird musical in the extended version. Like there were like lyrical songs for no reason, but anyway.
Oh yeah, no, that's one of the fun things about the book is it's extremely musical. Like loads of characters just break out into songs. Yeah, like these songs that they're singing in Bilbo's house, like they're almost word for word, I think, in the books. It's an extremely musical. Yeah, I think the Lord of the Rings is to a certain degree as well, like full of these little poems and things. So yeah, honestly, if they'd leaned into that more, even if they could have like had even more of a musical tinge, that might have helped with that tone. But
at least made it like stand out.
Yeah, because they needed to take a different approach. Because trying to Lord of the Rings if I didn't make sense. But
this one's really like Lord of the Rings light. Like it's noticeably darker than like the first one, I feel. Yeah. Each one of these feels so different.
Because, this is when the like B and C stories like start really dragging down the overall kind of product to me. Because this is when they get to the wood elves or whatever, and then Legolas, you're just saying with the member berries, Adam, like it's sprinkled in there a bit, an unexpected journey with having the like egregious Elijah Wood like cameo at the beginning for like no reason. But yeah, it gets more extreme in this movie where you have the whole necromancer subplot where Gandalf goes off like he just leaves in the original like Hobbit story. Like it's not important. Like you need to get Gandalf out of the story because like he's he can solve most problems that characters get into. So just right like once he's just like, oh, I'm busy. I just got to go do something for a bit. Yeah. So and then that's like half an hour of this damn movie is just like whatever he's doing at Dungledore or whatever the hell he is. It's like just it's so unnecessary and annoying.
It is so unnecessary. It goes on so long, and the extended cut is just even more of that shit. They had a whole other character, Thorin's dad.
Yeah,
and it's like, you didn't need that. Like, the movie's already too long. It's just so clear to me that like they just threw in all this stuff, and then producers or editors had to come in like, this doesn't work. Like, it feels like a movie that's been cut down. It's so kind of jumbled. And when I said the movie's dark, I just mean not just like tonally, just like visually. I feel like it looks like more pale than the last one. And there's just like some VFX shots that were like felt more rushed, and I just felt there was more polish on that first one.
Definitely.
Than the second one, and especially the third one.
On that exact line, there are some really strange things in Desolation specifically, whether it be in the barrel action scene, there's like a couple of GoPro shots that are like.
I hate those.
That's always bothered me. There's always
like
been
GoPro Generation 1.
I was like watching this in IMAX. I'm like, you really using a GoPro in like a fantasy epic? Like it's not crank high voltage. It's like a fucking
you get
it's
away
like a
with
fantasy
it in that movie. You're right.
Right. It depends on the movie.
But yeah, especially with the high frame rate and everything else, and like you're
was so
advertising
jarring.
this as like this theatrical spectacle of crisp images and you know the frame rate as well. Just like, okay, well that's very out of place. That's very bizarre.
Yeah,
it's a weird choice and unnecessary too.
Oh yeah, unnecessary is the big descriptor of this trilogy.
For sure. It feels like amateurish. Like you think of like, directors like Christopher Nolan, like they care so much about the visual, like every shot like, looking like the same, like the film look. And yeah, it's just like here it was so amateurish how it cut to that like cheap digital camera. And it's like a 1 second shot. I don't want to like nitpick or whatever, but it is distracting in a movie like this.
Yeah, it's enough to kind of like be really noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you could just get rid of it easily makes it worse. The fact that it wasn't a longer shot and you could just edit it out and you wouldn't even notice, that makes it kind of worse, doesn't it?
I mean, that describes
exactly.
a lot of the action in these movies, to be honest. It genuinely changes nothing about the outcome of really anything. It's just like pure spectacle, a lot of it.
Maybe it was edited on someone's fucking telephone.
It might like make some of the shots look a bit better. Like there's this one that has always bugged me of Smaug towards the end of the movie. There's like a overhead shot of him kind of like flinging his head up in pain towards the camera, and it looks like previs. Like it doesn't look complete. It's like always bugged me, this specific, and it's so strange though, because it leans into this rush thing we've been talking about, because some of those early shots where they're like establishing Smaug, like are at the gold, like just going everywhere, falling around his eye, and you know the approach with that, and it's all like so like well polished and kind of thoughtful. But then just 15 minutes later, you just have like some of the worst, lamest action like you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, it's so weird how the quality, like the quality expectation kind of drops as they go along. Yeah, they're rushing to get them done. It makes me wonder why they didn't make them shorter for that reason too, because you kind of have more time to like polish everything if you have less movie to work on as a whole. But it's so long.
Yeah, and it can't decide if it wants to be about the Hobbit or be a prequel to the Lord of the Rings or be about the dwarves and their epic thing, or you know, there's just like so many just things it's trying to do, and it really needs to just like settle on one and commit, because it doesn't work otherwise.
No, there's so much stuff that you can clearly cut out. The stuff with Radagast, it's pointless. Cut that out. The love triangle with the elf lady.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
That needed to be cut out completely. It's like not in the movie, the animated one, and it feels like it feels shoehorned in there. And it's not like I'm not opposed to like a more women characters in Lord of the Rings. Like I'm in favor of that. But to write a love triangle for that character is very not interesting. It's like one of the least interesting routes you can take.
No, that's the thing about the book.
Mm-hmm.
Is they're like, it was an issue in Lord of the Rings as well. There were basically like no women characters for the most part. So they're like kind of torn, like, what do we do? I guess we make this Toriel character that's, what are we going to make her do? Put her in a love triangle. Ugh. Yeah.
It's incredibly lame.
Make sense.
Yeah.
Legolas is so fucking annoying in this movie.
Yeah, he's terrible.
It feels like a different character. Like everything that I would describe him as in the original trilogy, it's just not... I don't remember him being just like jealous and overconfident and rude. But that's like all he is in this trilogy. It's so weird. He's just kind of an asshole. He looks different too. Orlando's got... his face is a little bit more chub.
Yeah, a little bit older.
Looks a little bit older, right? Even though it's a prequel. Well, you can notice that with Ian McKellen too, and so on.
Which is unfortunate, because the new elf character with the Lee Pace plays, I quite like. I think he's got like a fun screen
Lee Pace
presence.
Is great.
Yeah. I wanted more of him without like being bogged down with the love triangle. It's because it was real type shit, you know, where it's like, ugh.
Yeah. The barrel scene. What do we think of that? Because some people think it's too silly.
Kind of unnecessary.
I thought it was kind of fun, but yeah. Well, a lot of it's unnecessary. Yeah.
The movie
indulgence
is unnecessary.
Yeah. yeah. Right. You can say that about everything.
Yeah. No, because it's an essential scene. It's like one of the most famous scenes, like from like the book, is the barrel escape. So it had to be in there in some form, and I feel like there are little elements of it that are kind of fun. Like I know people hate the like bomber bouncing around in the barrel thing and then him bursting out at the end.
I thought that was hilarious when I first saw it.
You could do something with the bouncing thing. Maybe him like bursting out of the end is a bit too much, but you could have done something. But once this turns into like Legolas like jumping on them on their heads and like just orcs running around, it's like just it's too much. It didn't need to be that complicated. Like there's already enough going on. Like you can just have fun with it and not indulge for like however long that scene feels. But it does feel like a whole like endurance battle, because there's like a bit where like a dwarf gets hit by an arrow and you kind of think it's going to mean something, but no, it's just, I don't know, to slow things down so Tauriel can see it and the love triangle can advance. It's all just like nonsense.
And it's like the over reliance on the CGI really bothers me with these movies too, because like sometimes it's fun and that barrel scene, it's kind of lighthearted, but for the most part, things just really don't lack weight. They don't look real. And it really kind of hinders certain scenes. It kind of reminded me of the prequels. In a couple ways, this reminded me of the prequels. You know, it's both like these directors coming back to their franchises and, you know, the kind of fan reactions too, how they're kind of divided. Yeah, although I would say these are better. Like, I still kind of enjoy this movie. I'd probably rate it the same as the first one, honestly. But yeah, these problems are like so noticeable. And I feel like if they were just fixed, the movies could have been like great. Like, people would have loved them unanimously. But yeah, that's not what happened.
Shout out to Stephen Fry.
In this movie.
Well, Stephen Fry and that character of Alfred that they added in.
Yeah, is that the master of Lake Town there? His assistant?
Yeah, the assistant.
Yeah,
guy.
those were bad characters. They just didn't need to be. That's again like just cut that out of the movie. I didn't enjoy that at all. Yeah, well, he was just like the Brad Dourif character in Lord of the Rings. You know, the assistant to the in the Two Towers. It's just like the same character, right? But just inferior, obviously.
At the very end of the last movie, they ended the movie with like blah 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 dragon, and then they showed his eye, right? And then it's the title of this movie, Desolation of Smaug, like dragon, and it's 2 hours and 15 minutes until we even get to the fucking dragon. It's just like a lot of padding and just nothing, right? You want to see the dragon, and we eventually see the dragon, but we don't even see the destruction. Look, we don't even see the desolation of Smaug, right?
Yeah.
And so it just, oh my god, the fact that they chose to end the movie there and pisses me off. Like, the cliffhanger doesn't work for me because I feel like it's at the point of it just being misleading and unethical and just dishonest.
I mean, people knew it was going to be like 3 movies, so it's not like they knew there was going to be a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I know, but what you advertise in the title should be in the title of that movie, or sorry, in the content of that movie.
You got to see Smaug. You got to see Smaug for a little bit.
The desolation, though, was in the next movie.
Yeah, there was some desolation in this movie.
Not quite.
Oh, it's because they go to that city, don't they, and they comment on what they're seeing. It is weird because there's like no way to fix it, basically, because if you bring it forwards in the movie, then all of a sudden a third movie no longer makes sense, and there's nothing really to do in that third movie.
I mean, it was only the first like fucking 10 minutes of the third movie. Just end this one with the fucking end of the dragon thing.
Yeah, but then you have even less like to like the battle the battle of five armies.
The movie is gonna suck anyway.
That one's really. You want to just talk about the third one? It feels like we're like itching to talk about that one.
I mean, the third. I don't know if taking out the first 10, 15 minutes of the third movie makes it worse. I don't know if I even agree with that, honestly. I think the third movie is just as bad, regardless.
I think at least you have like you've got there's kind of an attention to like, the credits are coming up, it's building up with Smaug's theme. That's like a hook to get you in, right? That's something.
Fucking awful credits song. I see fire.
Oh, the Ed Sheeran
Feels
one.
so inappropriate.
Yeah, in that one. No, I'm talking about the beginning of that third movie.
My God.
Like it's something, at least, like as a hook to get you in. The dragon attack, like what? Like
The movie sucks.
no one cares. No one knows or cares about the Battle of Five Armies, and it's like,
Right.
I think it's like 3 pages in the book. It's like nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the tail end of the animated movie, right? I was wondering how they were gonna like do that, or in the animated one. Just one last thing about Smaug, this one, and then we can move on to the third one. I think they introduced Luke Evans in this Bard.
Yes.
He's the guy who kills Smaug in the next one, I guess. But yeah, they have to like develop him out, even though he's like, barely a character in the animated one. Give him a family.
That's another adaptation problem where this character just appears like the same chapter they go there. Like it's not like a member of the company or one of the dwarves that like takes down the dragon. It's just this like random guy. So how do you like make
exactly
that satisfying in a movie? And I guess they try their best and give him a family or whatever, but there really ain't much to work off.
No, there's really not much going on there.
I do want to mention a couple things about this movie before we move on. One, the theatrical versus extended runtime is a bit different. Is now like a 25-minute difference.
25 minutes, huge difference.
And 3 hour 6 minute extended. What seemed to be my general feeling of the action scenes in this movie was just like, it felt like too theme park ridey. Both the barrel scene and, I mean, even the parts of the Smaug scene. He gets on the what was that even?
He jumps on a wheelbarrow.
Wheelbarrow. Thank you. I don't know why that word escaped me.
Yeah. Well, when they fight him, that was lame.
Yeah, and he's just like in the lava, and I guess the wheelbarrow isn't conducting any heat.
That was kind of stupid. Fine. I didn't really enjoy that toward the end. I like this scene with just like Bilbo talking to Smaug.
And they're like dancing on his fucking nose. He could just eat him at any point. It's just like fucking like... It's just so weird.
Yeah,
and
it lacked any tension. Yeah.
It exemplifies and highlights the clash between this sort of children's story sort of thing, but also trying to make it this epic Lord of the Rings feel, right? And this big clash between these two genres, basically, where it's like, okay, nobody's dying, I guess. Like, and everything's cartoonish, but you're going to pretend as if there's any sort of similar weight and consequence to things that are happening. Yeah, it was just annoying. Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that Ed Sheeran song as well, because it does make the ending worse, because it's like right after there's like, what have we done? And then Ed Sheeran starts singing, where it's like
clashing tones.
I didn't feel this way in the other like. Every single one of the other Lord of the Rings movies and Hobbit
those
movies,
songs are good.
They've got like
I like those songs.
They've got like really good credit songs that like feel like they're part of the world. Where this is the first like, oh god, it feels like you're just playing the radio all of a sudden. It really whips you out of the world.
It's just another part of the production that
seems like a tie-in.
Yeah,
like everything. Like everything just feels.
Get Ed Sheeran to do it. Yeah, really, really bizarre.
Yeah. Might as well just be an ad.
Yeah, he'll get him write a song with a fire in the title. Yeah,
he randomly appeared in Game of Thrones as well, didn't he? The hell was
he ruined Game of Thrones. He's just ruining just every fantasy franchise he can. That's just what he does. I just really have an issue with the pacing of all 3 of these movies. I will keep saying they're indulgent. I just wish they were shorter. Even if they were 3 movies, if they were 90 minutes, I would be fine with it. It's just so fucking indulgent. It's like, why am I sitting here for 6 hours watching this shit? I mean, really? I mean, like, there's a point where I like kind of draw the line and I start to get kind of aggravated when a movie's just kind of wasting my time, and they especially watching the extended ones. Like, maybe I'm more harsh because I just watched the extended ones. Yeah. But I was like kind of aggravated because it's just like such a long ordeal.
Aside from a couple extended scenes, I'd say for the most part, just if you want to watch these movies for whatever reason, don't watch the extended ones. Like it's like the inverse of the Lord of the Rings discussion for me, where I'd say, yeah, it enriches everything to watch those extended Lord of the Rings movies if you're into those stories. Like that is the definitive way to watch them. Whereas here, I really don't think that's the case. It's just like so obvious. It's so blatant. Sure, you get like little bits of like dwarf characterization or whatever here and there, but it's like not enough. It's clearly not the focus. It doesn't give you what you'd need to care about this like cast of characters.
The theatrical cut feels like the extended cut for all three of them.
It's
just like too much.
Yeah, it's already bloated.
With how clunky they are.
It's already bloated.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very boring movie for the most part. I loved Smaug. I loved the performance. I think Benedict Cumberbatch did a great job. Smaug. And yeah, it was really that was the most interesting part of the movie, and then that was not most of the movie. So most of the movie was bad. 4 out of 10, bullshit.
Yeah. I liked Smaug. I liked the barrel scene, and then that's pretty much it. The shit with the spider forest, like we didn't even talk about that. It's like the very beginning.
I forgot about that. I don't know if that was even in my notes.
Or the bear guy, Bjorn. Yeah.
The bear guy. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the bear guy's in the animated one, I believe.
Yeah. He's in the story, but he's just like not.
Yeah.
He's not necessary in this story. No. Oh, there's another hilariously bad shot I forgot to mention, that being they introduce Azog wasn't enough, I guess, in that first movie. They introduced like a sub-villain to Azog. I think it's like his son, Azog's son. I think it's called Bolg. And there's this like incredibly indulgent Bolg fight scene with Legolas in that water town.
Oh
it
my
feels
God.
like half an hour long, but like right as it ends, like the kind of cliffhanger is Bolg riding off on one of those dogs and Legolas chasing after him, and it's like the shot shows like a bridge going out of Lake Town, and it looks like PS1 like pre-rendered. Like, it looks like so fucking bad. It's so embarrassing.
Oh yeah.
It looks horrendous, and yeah, that synthetic look of I think they get uglier as they go along. Like by the time you get
For
to
sure.
Battle of the Five Armies, it's like, yeah, it might as well be prequel.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking for Battle of 5 Armies. I'm like, I feel like I'm watching like a PlayStation 4 cutscene right now. Like,
it straight up looks like that.
You know, the over reliance on the CGI again is so distracting in these. And it's because the pre-production, they just didn't have time to make anything. You know, they just had to rush these out. You really notice it in this last one, just how rushed. And it also really drags down the other two, because I just started to notice the problems with the other two, which was that I didn't really care about the characters that much. And when they started, you know, when the stakes were raised and they started dying, I didn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Why would you by that point, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's just boring. Did we give ratings for Smaug?
I did.
Adam did, yeah.
Oh.
I think I'm pretty much there. I think 2-star is about what I would give this. I'm there with you guys with the Smaug stuff. With him and Bilbo and that conversation, that saves the movie from being like just fully trash to me. Outside of it, there really isn't that much I like, because everything is sandwiched either within that love triangle or just excess stuff that we've been saying. It's not good.
I gave the theatrical cut a 6. This extended one, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. So, 6 out of 10.
Right. Let's do the Battle of 5 Armies then. The 2014 Trilogy capper. All the same crew returning. Picking up exactly where that Ed Sheeran cliffhanger left us. We basically get like a 15-minute short film of Smaug destroying Lake Town, and then
it was 12
something
minutes.
else. Oh, is that the exact? It's 12 minutes.
Even in the extended edition, it was like 12 fucking minutes. And I was like, just put this at the end of the last movie, you assholes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a scam. It's an actual scam.
Yeah.
Because it's probably the best part of the movie too. It's It's better than anything that happens
Probably,
in the
yeah.
actual battle of Five Armies. That is the like title of the film. Yeah, I'm looking at the runtime here, and I'm kind of struggling to even really break down like what justifies that runtime, or like what even really happens in it. Yeah, there's this battle in the first 12 minutes of Smaug, but in between that, it's kind of just a lot of like characters like just going in circles saying war is coming, it's happening, guys. The Lord of the Rings is on the horizon. Remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, God. This is where it like kind of definitively falls apart for me, where it doesn't even have that Gollum or Smaug scene, you know, like that's as good as those previous. It doesn't have that one thing you can at least point at and be like, that's some payoff I was looking for. In that, just compare how the third movie of each of these like Lord of the Rings trilogies, just compare like how much like happens in the third Lord of the Rings and all the like payoffs you get and all these like character arcs finishing up and being rounded off and something so conclusive about it. Whereas like, what can you say of that note about this movie, you know, like even the heart of it, like I guess it's supposed to be about like that story of Bilbo and Thorin going from like kind of like, I don't know, they're not keen about each other, but then through the adventure they learn to appreciate each other for what they are and what they bring to the table. But that's mostly kind of concluded by the end of the first movie. Like none of these relationships are really expanded, or there's way more attention put on like what is Gandalf doing and how's the Lord of the Rings like building up in the background over here. Like it's not about the characters when it really needed to be character led, because you get moments like towards the end where they try to do the like kind of fellowship equivalent scene where it's Bilbo's leaving the dwarves behind and they're all in a line and the sad music's playing. But you're like, I don't know anything about these people, so why would I be invested? Whereas like you don't feel the same way when you see the fellowship and those other movies, and you've been like there with them and you've seen their characters grow and they've like changed in some way, where most of these guys you don't even know their names unless you're into the lore or whatever.
Yeah. They're just relying on the things you know. Probably one of the worst scenes in the movie is that the scene with Gandalf, like toward the beginning, like the wrap up of like the Saruman
with the
thing.
necromancer like revealing that it's Sauron.
They all show up like the Avengers. Yeah, Cate Blanchett shows up, Hugo Weaving, and it's like, it's so dumb. It's so dumb, that whole scene. It's like, she turns all green and starts yelling.
They like fight ghosts or something. Yeah, not good.
Right. They're like slashing at the ghosts. It's so silly, that sequence. And then, it's mostly dull for like an hour before the action starts. Yeah, because like once the Smaug fight is over and that's over, there's like no action for a long time. It's like a lot of just like sitting around talking, negotiating. Like Bard wants gold for his people, but Thorin doesn't want to give it away. And so like a lot of repetitive kind of scenes like that. And yeah.
Because they try to kind of do you know, like the way the ring kind of corrupts you in that original trilogy and it changes you. They sort of tried to do a similar thing with the gold in Erebor. Kind of like turning Thorin into being more like a dragon. And whereas maybe you could have done something with that, but it also at the same time it feels like really similar to the ring, and the ring is already in the story and part of it. So it just feels like familiar territory, and it just misses. So when you get to like that, the adventure being over towards the end, and like he's leaving Gandalf, they're more concerned in kind of like just teasing, Bilbo, I know that's the One Ring, and that's how the trilogy that you will know and love starts. So it doesn't really matter like our characters like leaving and the emotions that come from that. It's more about the silliness and the spectacle. And my God, the spectacle, like every side character gets like a stupid, dumb action scene that like takes it too far, whether it be so like epic. The Legolas running up the like falling, crumbling wall.
Video game.
The bard on his like video game level where he's riding like a I don't know, like a trolley or something down a hill and smashes into a troll. It's like all this like crazy.
Yeah, Lee Pace like cuts the head off like 5 orcs like in front of him like at once. Yeah. The extended cut's like really bloody, I noticed. I don't know if I don't remember the regular cut being that way.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger
like,
changes actually is
I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, because like in the first Hobbit movie, they like slice the Goblin King, and it like you see it like kind of open up on his body, but there's like nothing inside and no blood like comes out or whatever.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's like a children's story kind of almost, but also epic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, and then there's like other things that were added that I know Tolkien fans, they hate they call them wereworms or something weird like that. Azog calls them in the subtitles. You know those giant
the sandworms from Dune?
The Dothraki Dune.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what was that? And they never set that up in like any of the Lord of the Rings movies or the Hobbit. It just comes out of nowhere.
They never set it up, and it's never. Yeah, like that probably would have been quite useful at the time of the Lord of the Rings going down. But I guess that maybe they lost them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they all died in the battle. Yeah, this is like dumb shit like that, right? Like it doesn't make any sense when you like try to think about it and break it down.
Billy Connolly shows up as a CG dwarf.
I was just about to talk about that. Very weird that they chose to make him CG.
Done on a lot of actors, but he was just like complete Beowulf. Like he was complete Robert Zemeckis in that generation of his films.
But acting against like live action actors.
Yeah.
And even Orlando Bloom at certain points was like CG. Like I noticed. Like close-ups of him.
And again, when I watched the film in theaters, there was still that sort of like excuse for self-doubt where I could be like, okay, maybe it's the weird frame rate. But it still looked weird in theaters. But now I'm like, okay, this is definitely just really fucked up looking. Like this just looks bad.
Oh,
now I can't blame the frame rate.
Yeah,
I just don't understand the decision to do that. Like, why not get an actor?
Well, that's the thing, because that's what's frustrating. Because the casting is kind of fun. Like that is a good dwarf like casting for a character. But then you make him this weird zombie looking monster, which is even weirder because they do have like CG characters in these movies beforehand and they look fine. Like Gollum looks fantastic in that first one and Smaug looks amazing, but yeah, this dwarf guy doesn't fill the role, doesn't do the job.
So whenever you just try to do people, it's like Uncanny Valley. The Gollum's like a orc or whatever, right? Or goblin. And yeah, Smaug's a dragon, or what is it called, Adam?
Wyvern?
Yeah. So, less Uncanny Valley for those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the too long. There's just like scenes in this where I'm like, wow, that looks like really rushed. Like they didn't have time to like film the scene. Like there's some scene with Thorin and one of the other dwarves. I don't even know which one, but they're in his throne room, and you know the dwarf is telling him like, the gold has corrupted you. The old Thorin would never do this. And just like the blocking of the scene, it's just like 2 close-ups on them, and they just keep reusing the same shots. And it's like this terrible green screen behind them, and it's like you needed like more blocking for this scene, or like more coverage. It's just like, it's so boring, you know? Like, I felt like the most out of any of the 3 of them, I was watching like a TV show here. So not interesting.
And that's a good example of a scene that probably needed to happen and could have had some emotional weight if you actually had characters you knew something about, like actually talking to each other. Like, you know nothing about it. Like they've got no dynamic or established kind of like rapport or anything like that. So yeah, that conflict doesn't really ring true in any major way. I feel like they probably could have made it work as well if you just kind of move some of the characters around, add a few more scenes of like developing the dwarves, and could have been done. It could have been done, but they weren't willing, I guess, with this trilogy stretch.
I guess not. Yeah, Peter Jackson, especially this one, seemed kind of like worn down. It's like,
yeah, he looks like miserable in the behind the scenes stuff. He's like, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's skinny.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind It's kind of like Spider-Man 3 kind of situation where they were just kind of like tired by the time they were making that movie. And you could tell just watching the film. It just feels rushed.
Yeah, the entire movie, this third one, just I kept saying, "Get on with it," and it never did. Mm-hmm. And it felt like the movie was as exhausted as I was. You know, it screams that through its production, where they're just like they're continuing to do this. Nobody seems like they want to be doing it, and it's just there. And everybody has to suffer through this bizarre, tortured technique.
It's like, like, through so much of the dialogue and like the way they try and build up this war, it just feels like this constant like posturing, like trying to remind the audience that like, no, this is important, but like what is happening right now is like Lord of the Rings, isn't it, guys? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like it has to be like you have to have the big crazy worms and the CG bats of Legolas being carried around, but in these new troll design, like it's too much. It's like trying to overcompensate for like what it clearly knows is lacking in that story department. Which like they're gonna know. Like the people working on it, like you really think Peter Jackson didn't know? Like
I'm sure he knew.
It is like workman, like you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And tired.
Mm-hmm. He was... I don't blame him for being exhausted making these, but yeah, it just comes across as like something that could have been really great if it was just shorter and tighter, and maybe have other directors do the other ones or something. I don't know. I don't know how you could have fixed it, but...
Well, yeah, I think the answer was Guillermo. Like, they had their golden ticket. And supposedly his plan with this 2-part thing was that the first part was going to be more like condensing the more intimate side of the Hobbit story combine with Guillermo's kind of style and really indulge in that side of it, and then bring the bounds in a bit more for the part 2 and make it fit into the Lord of the Rings in a certain way. An ambitious idea in and of itself, but I mean, I would prefer and would have preferred to have seen that and have that exist over this unfortunate trilogy of like a lot of the ideas being okay and some of the stuff being good. And I find it interesting. Guillermo's like he's like credited, I think, in each of the 3 movies.
Yeah, something, or is it?
I think he might even get a writing credit. Probably, I guess because of how much pre-production. Although I'm pretty sure they scrapped the majority of what he did, so I don't know if that's just out of politeness or what. But because he did sacrifice like nearly 2 years to a project he never actually got to see the light of day on. So it might just be something like that.
I just hate this movie. I hated it with more and more with every single minute that passed, because I didn't feel like I was seeing anything new with every minute. I was just like, okay, more mindless action, video game nonsense. You've had so long to build up the stakes and make me care about anything happening. That didn't happen. You've had so long to build up the characters and make it so that when a character is experiencing a piece of action, it feels motivated, that I care about what they're doing, that I remember their fucking name. That didn't happen, except Bofer. You know, and just, it's absolute soulless garbage where you can tell they threw money at it. There's some money in there. Wow. That's it. That doesn't make a movie. I hate that. I hate it when that's the only thing you can tell about a movie, is that they spent money on it. Zero passion.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
I mostly just disliked putting the special effects in front of the story and the characters, because like you're saying, Alex, it doesn't, it's trying to overcompensate. But really, like those Lord of the Rings movies, that was a great story. It was epic. And these are just simple stories. They're not supposed to be anything like the Lord of the Rings. And if you're trying to like compare yourself to that, it kind of feels like having your appetizer after your meal. I've heard that comparison with these movies before. And I'm like, yeah, it's not nearly as epic as Lord of the Rings. And it shouldn't even try to be. It should just be The Hobbit. And it isn't.
It's like your appetizer was poison.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if, like, Bilbo, he gets knocked out for the Battle of Five Armies, like, in the movie. Like,
he's such a not part of it. Like, yeah. Especially the last two. He's just so on the sidelines. And it's like, yeah, he's the main character. The stuff with him in the ring. It's like they don't even bring up the ring, really, for, like, the first 2 hours of the movie for this Battle of Five Armies. I felt it's, like, such a non-part of the movie. Like, where's the ring? What about all that shit with him having the ring? And I don't know. It was so like anticlimactic, I felt.
The extended scene, I think there's a Thorin funeral. That's one of the few I'd say it's probably should have been in there. He's like one of the main characters, and he doesn't get like a funeral. He's
like
scene
the only
in the theatrical
dwarf.
cut. Yeah, he's the only one who really gets like some kind of arc, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy that scene isn't in the original, but again, it just kind of points at where the priorities were. Because I mean, I would have taken like an hour's worth of dwarves eating food and being silly and getting them developed over, you know, scenes of Legolas riding trolls around and shooting arrows and crazy. Like, that's just not what the heart of this this story is to me. Like,
yeah,
because we were even saying that
played around more with that.
Yeah, exactly. In our like Lord of the Rings discussion trilogy episode we did for that, I remember saying that indulgence, like, it's just there, like little specks of it, like start cropping up towards the end of like with the Legolas character especially. Like, he's like it's on the borders of being like ridiculous video gamey stuff already in those movies, and that's like the best example. But then in the space between that, you do have your King Kongs and all that other stuff in between, and yeah, it is excessive by the time you get to this movie. This is the ultimate excess kind of Lord of the Rings project. It's sad and unfortunate because it's just like you didn't see what you had, what you could have done, and all the creative avenues you could have taken this story, but you had to try and recapture Lord of the Rings because they just make loads of money and everyone knows what they are. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
The fact that they released an extended version of this movie. The fucking balls on them to do that.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, doesn't it mostly add action for the most part in this one? Like, it's...
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It adds nothing.
It's all mindless, and you didn't, like... It just blends into itself. It just adds to the runtime without adding anything. Apparently the extended version's rated R. So like there's some parts where the like big troll things or whatever, it was like, oh, there's blood in it.
Oh, is that? Yeah, because it's really bloody. Yeah, I was going to say.
So it's like the first R-rated Lord of the Rings film. Which is weird.
It's so unnecessary. Yeah. That's all I thought. I'm like, this is so unnecessary. Like, it just feels out of place with like the rest of this series of movies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's that
So
baked in
bizarre.
tonal problem where like the story starts and it's like silly, kind of low stakes. And then when you're trying to conjure these epic stakes from nowhere for this huge battle, it is like unintentionally funny as a result. Like
so long.
There's that scene where they're like building up the tension, and it seems like they're losing, and because Thorin and company are like locked up inside the fortress or whatever and won't come out. But then there's this big moment where they're like 13 dwarves come charging out, and that's supposed to like represent a change in the battle, even though what they're charging against is like literally thousands and thousands of like enemy like minions. It just visually doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. It just a big clash.
Yeah. None of the action's like memorable. The set pieces or, I don't remember much about
That's the thing. Like I can at least point out details from the first and second movies that I kind of like, and I'm fine with
the barrel scene.
I find that really difficult with this one in particular.
Yeah, it's just like a big mesh of a bunch of bodies, clashing. Like that's it. It's just like you can't even tell what the fuck is going on half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nothing. You've shown me. You spent so much money showing nothing. We are all worse.
Like,
for
oh
it.
man. And the more I like remember and think about like the way Thorin like has his final showdown with Azog on that like ice field. It's It's so stupid, man. Where he's like, he like slides under the water and then he like glides along under Thorin, and it's just not cool. It's not.
It's just filler. Yeah, I think one of you said it's just padding. Right.
Yeah.
It's like action to make the movie longer. Right. But if there was no action, it'd probably be like 40 minutes long. But yeah, but when there isn't action though, it's like just dull. It's just like they're talking. Like it almost makes you wish for action when there isn't, you know?
The only scene that I thought was like partially serviceable was when we got back the other actors like Christopher Lee, you know, Hugo Weaving, Cate Blanchett.
Oh, you like that scene, the Avengers scene.
It felt the most reminiscent of the other films. You know?
At least they were all back.
Really?
It was cool that
it wasn't like a great scene or anything, but it was
it felt kind of like
those actors
fan
have
service-y.
a very commanding screen presence, and I think that it goes a long way.
Yeah,
Whereas like the rest of the movie is just like a computer with no screen presence.
I like the scenes with Lee Pace usually. Whenever he was on screen, I was like, oh, he's a good actor. When like Bilbo gives him the Arkenstone there in his tent, I thought that was a good scene.
Yeah, more of that would have been a welcome addition.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just not enough of it. This is one of the times though where I'd always heard about these like fan edits, right, of this movie.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them because like Lord of the Rings, you know, it's one of those nerd properties where it's got like a crazy passionate fan base that's willing to try and repair this. And I was just looking up certain lists, and I actually watched one of these fan edits, which I've never done that before. But I wanted to go in.
I felt so exhausted I couldn't after these. Like I'll do it in a year maybe.
Because what I was questioning was like is there a good movie wedged in this somewhere? Is there a good version of The Hobbit in this? Like, could you trim it out? Because that's what most of these fan edits attempt to do. It's mostly taking stuff out. There's very little that like is added in, or it's because the one I settled on was it's just called J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, December 2015 final, which cuts it to it's about 4 hours, I think.
Okay.
And it is noticeably better to watch it that way, because it does just like flow as you would imagine. They they take out everything with Legolas. They take out everything with the love triangle. They take out most of the Battle of Five Armies. They take out most of the fluff, because that is mostly what is bringing it down.
Yeah, Radagast. Yeah.
Yeah, no Radagast. Like when the action starts going on for too long in like the theatrical ones, they kind of just trim it out and just move the story on. So weirdly, that I think that's probably the preferred way. And I got up a list of like how many of these damn things there are. There are so many like fan cuts, whether it be the anti-cringe cut, one of them's called, the book edit, the wizard cut. Yeah, a cut of roast mutton cut. Like, there's a million.
Topher Grace made a cut.
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah, Topher Grace did a fan edit of the Hobbit movie. I would have watched it if I wasn't so fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
But I literally have to wait until like next year or some shit before I can even start to think about watching any Hobbit shit again.
Yeah. So honestly, that's probably my recommendation. Like, if you really feel like you need, after watching the Lord of the Rings or something, and you're getting that hankering for more of it, find one of these fan edits, because I think it's much preferable over the mess of 9+ hours, whatever the total Hobbit content wound up being.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think we'll hit the point in time where a studio will be conscious enough of what the public wants that even after releasing something like the Hobbit trilogy, maybe they might do an official release of a fan edit?
Well, it's basically what the Snyder Cut is.
You know? Because we have like 4 different cuts of Blade Runner, right? Those were all like industry people making different cuts for different reasons. There's a bunch of different cuts of Blade Runner. There's a bunch of different cuts of like Brazil. And they're all for like different reasons, mostly just, you know, studio interference. But I think it'd be cool to see the day where a unauthorized fan edit gets made of something, and then, you know, maybe even 10 years later, some amount of time later, if it's popular enough, if people like it enough, that it shows up on the official Blu-ray or something as like a special feature, like that would be cool. But at the same time, I think that, I don't know, there's a sense of like pride going along with it. They're like, we don't want to admit that we made the bad
kind of
thing.
Acknowledge that, exactly, that this is the fans' version because the one we made didn't quite have the chops.
I hope it happens someday, because like there's really just, you know, people want to give money for things that they want to see, and if there's like a better version of something somewhere, you know, like Call of the Wild, remove all the CG, it's just a dude pretending to be a dog the whole time. That sounds funny. That got big on Twitter. Like the No Man's Sky dev was like, release the cut without the dog, you cowards. And that became viral. That was like the most marketing that film had ever had. You would dream, if you were in charge of viral marketing a property, you would dream for that level of engagement and interest in your product. And they didn't release that cut, even though tons of people would buy it. They're fucking stupid. I'm waiting for the point in time where studios become a bit more consciously aware of ways that they can make money and provide people with things that they want, you know. But I guess you'll just have to illegally find the better version of The Hobbit.
And even then it's kind of held back where like fan edits are inherently held back by, you know, you don't have the original shots, especially audio is like all entangled and messed up. If you want to change like a audio track or something, it's like a different, it's like really, there are a bunch of like really obvious like cuts and like weird awkward fades.
A lot of people are just not professionals doing it.
Yeah.
They're not going to be in great quality in the export. It's going to be like weird compression. And so that's always a turnoff for me in terms of like fan edits. But
yeah, for me as well. I could probably do a good fan edit of these.
Someone made a Harry Potter edit where they replaced the wands with guns. That was pretty interesting. I
want to go back to like the critical response to these. The highest rated one was Desolation of Smaug, which I thought was interesting because I probably prefer the first one.
That was me when I watched them in theaters. I liked Smaug the best.
Yeah.
But I've changed my perspective since.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a huge difference. I probably just prefer the first one. It's like a little more polished to me. And yeah, 5 Armies is like 59%.
Yeah, I much prefer that first one.
Yeah, kind of divided. Audiences liked it because it's just a bunch of action. I mean, that's what they want. But yeah, it's like it's
fairly high ratings and stuff as far as like fan votes are concerned.
I'm not opposed to action. It's a problem with many Hollywood movies. It's just I want it to be in service of something. I want it to be in service of characters I like or a story. Yeah, some camaraderie. I mean, the original Lord of the original Lord of the Rings characters, you can tell them apart. Unlike the dwarves here, like I know Gimli and Legolas and Aragorn, like these fucking guys. I don't know, but Buffa and Bubba and
Bofa,
Doodoo and Smelly and Nosy and
Fatso, Chad.
Chad. That one was so distracting because he just looks like a dude.
Yeah, you know? They're like, how do we make
it just looks like a
dwarves
guy
hot?
Oh, the love triangle guy.
The love triangle one. And you know, he has like he dies in the elf woman's arms. Like, was I actually supposed to like give a shit?
Yeah,
really?
God, we didn't even mention like 3 of the main dwarf characters like die in the third movie. And you just don't even remember or care like by the time it happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Thorin dies, and it's just like, okay. Like it had no impact on me at all. It was like really, I probably had more emotion in like Fellowship.
Yeah, much more, because it's supposed to be like, I guess, a big moment, because that's like the end of that family line, basically. Like all 3 of them are killed around the same time. It's like, well, they're done then, I guess. But you don't really get any of that weight with it.
You don't really feel that, right? There's just like so much other fantasy out there that you could spend 9 hours of your life watching, like Lord of the Rings or like Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Very infuriating movie. Very bullshit scam It's a scam. It's literally a scam. That's how I felt. I fucked this movie. It's a 2 out of 10 for me. I hate it.
I wouldn't go that low, but
It's literally a scam.
I wouldn't recommend it really. Especially the extended one. I think my reaction's more negative because I just watched the extended ones. I probably wouldn't be so negative if I just watched the regular one.
Maybe they shouldn't sell it.
I gave the regular one a 6 out of 10 and a 3-star. Yeah, maybe like, because again, like, you know, the other ones, they feel like extended cuts already. They're already too long.
Yeah.
You should have just, had the one cut or something.
Yeah, extending
Yeah,
the
like,
extension.
I understand the Lord of the Rings extended cuts. Like, there's tons of more material in those books that they filmed and that people want to see. Like, it makes sense. Or like the Blade Runner cut, it makes the movie better. the whatever that cut is called. Here, it's like so fucking unnecessary. It's like they had to make extended cuts because they had extended cuts of Lord of the Rings, basically.
Yeah, it's obligatory. Everything about this is just out of obligation. The entire fucking trilogy, making it 3 movies, it just felt like out of obligation. Making it at all, it was just the entire thing was an obligation to everybody involved. Nobody wanted to do it. It's crazy. Pisses
I
me
don't know
off.
if it's actually like happening yet, but there's that thing that often happens where it's like a big franchise, and then when the new thing comes out and the new thing sucks, then people start kind of getting more positive on the thing that that was before the new bad thing. That bad thing being the Rings of Power.
Yeah,
people like
good point.
Bringing up the Hobbit, like at least it's not the Rings of Power
Well,
type of thing.
The first 2 Hobbit movies are better than Rings of Power. Battle of the 5 Armies is worse.
Yeah, I can
They
agree
have
with that.
different problems. Like
That's the thing.
Somehow.
the show is too bland. Like, even the bad parts of this are kind of like funny. Like, unlike Rings of Power, which is just so dull the entire time. This is still a Peter Jackson movie, but I mean, these are still Peter Jackson movies. I really just had an issue with that third one. I mean, really. Like, Thorin, his, like, I guess we didn't talk much about his, like, dark transformation. I would have preferred if that was, like, more subtle. But, you know, they give him, like, this deep, growly voice, like, "You will not take my gold, it's all mine." It's, like, kind of over the top, and just, I would have preferred, like, a little more subtlety there, maybe. Maybe that's wrong of me to ask because it's a Hobbit movie made for, like, families, perhaps, but I don't know. The whole thing it needed, like, more depth or just more going on. Yeah, incredibly hollow. I wish I liked them. I wish there was just like
I wish I liked
more
everything
to say about them.
Because it feels like a waste.
It's kind of like bland.
It feels like a waste because
Yeah.
it is like it's one of the like best-selling books of all time. Like it's such a like ingrained in pop culture story anyway. Like just like Lord of the Rings is. So having like a good adaptation of The Hobbit would have been nice if they could have had the wherewithal and less greed to actually just have like just imagine like a 3 hour, like it's all from Bilbo's perspective. Like it's just kind of a bit more whimsical, have a few more of the songs in there. Like that would be a fun, like accompanying project to that Lord of the Rings trilogy. And instead of like the 2 trilogies, like trying to fill the same space when that's one of the big jokes, isn't it? Like that image that's shared of like someone has taken the 3 Lord of the Rings books and put them next to each other, and then got a copy of The Hobbit, and then
The
said,
visual.
like, 3 movies out of both. And, the visual of it is quite telling, and there's definitely
Yeah,
that's all you need to know.
content to justify it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's completely bloated. Absolutely.
Disgusting. Thanks, Alex.
All right. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, soz.
Yeah,
I
thank you
was
so
I
much.
was watching The Lord of the Rings. I was going to watch them anyway. So I'm glad I finally got to see the extended ones for the first time, and I'll probably never watch them again, but hey, I can say I saw them.
It was a particular level of torture that I do not wish to subject myself to ever again.
Did we give
I
our
was actually
ratings
really
for
mad.
the last one?
I gave it 2.
I said 3-star.
Yeah, I'm lower than that probably. Maybe 2-star out of 5. Yeah, it's really not good.
It's like
very
close
little
to like
justify.
2.5
It's
star.
insulting. It's a scam. It's an actual scam.
It's pretty low, especially the extended one. I think I rate like the regular cut more so, 6 out of 10, just because it's shorter.
It's definitely better, but it doesn't feel like mad praise just because it's like shorter, you know. Like it's
yeah, exactly.
I guess before we, as we get into questions, if we're all ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've got a question kind of relating to the Hobbit movies, just for you, Alex. How do you feel about the usage of like different UK accents for different characters or species, or I think they had like Cockney for the trolls and like Scottish for the dwarves, and like, do you feel like there's a hint of like stereotype, or I don't know, would we say racism, like that's just kind of normalized in films like these?
I don't think it's like really negative stereotypes to me. Nah, it's more just nice having like a varied, because there is like the bard guy, he's Welsh and he's got his Welsh accent, and you're right, the dwarves with the Scottish accent. That's like a fantasy trope that's like never really bothered me, especially with a lot of these like myths kind of coming from Europe, and it just seems like it fits. Like I definitely prefer that as opposed to like a bunch of like a contemporary American accents or something. I think the new Willow show is getting clowned for that at the moment.
What show?
Like really,
Willow?
Warwick Davies' Willow. There's like a TV show that's out at the moment. It's nothing to write home. It's just one of those 80s. It was Ron Howard properties that it's just being revisited or whatever in his fantasy.
Weird.
Yeah,
it's Disney.
I kind of like that. It's also like in Game of Thrones as well. They've got like they do the similar thing of the northern accents, and I like it in a fantasy environment.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I guess we'll do some other questions.
I guess that's the Hobbit trilogy then. Man,
fuck.
Wow.
Let's do some. Yeah, fuck. That's all I can really say. Like, it is like exhausting.
I'm so done. I'm so done with it.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. I didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's a lot of content, isn't it? All right then. Let's do some questions from the Sardonicast community. Head over to the suggestion thread on the subreddit, just like an actual crocodile did. You can ask us whatever you feel like. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts on the Hobbit trilogy. My question is, have any of you read the Lord of the Rings books and or the Hobbit and or the Silmarillion? Given that all three of you are fans of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, I'm curious what your takes are on the source material and the ways Peter Jackson diverges from it. For example, I personally like that the movie version of Aragorn is more relatable, and I wish the films had included the Barrow Wight. I was a big fan of these. There was a really good, I think it was a BBC project or something, where like a radio version of Lord of the Rings that I loved.
Cool. That sounds
listening to as a kid. With all like the different voices and so expressive. And I think Ian Holm actually played not Bilbo, the Elijah Wood character. Can't believe I'm blank. Frodo in that. So yeah, and I've been a fan of The Hobbit as well for a long time. So I will say,
I haven't read them.
What's it, Tom Bombadil? That's the big one that most fans of the books can agree is like a good choice to leave out of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
That's what's interesting about the original trilogy, is that it was an adaptation that took creative liberties and did things in a really sensible way to just make a great film series out of. It didn't have to be 100% accurate to the books, and it's better that it wasn't. As those were being released, sure, there were some fans of the original source material that would be like, why is this different or whatever? But if it's different and it works better, who cares? It can succeed as its own product. It can succeed as its own thing. The book still exists. I haven't read the original source material. I've heard that the Silmarillion is a lot less like a narrative and more almost like an encyclopedia of sort, like that it's a difficult
that's the vibe
read.
I've got too.
But I think Gael's read parts of. I don't know. Gael seems to be a very good source for knowledge on Lord of the Rings related stuff. So I just kind of trust him. But I don't know if I'll ever read it. It's I've got a lot of other shit to do. So
yeah, the Silmarillion's are just a bit too deep for me. I can't be doing with that.
3 deep.
What about you, Ralph? You have any experience with these?
No, I haven't read them. I'd like to, probably soon, since I just saw the movies. But no, I haven't read them. Yeah,
report back.
I will.
Yeah, it's worth it, and the differences are fun. Kind of like comparing like what they do, and because the adaptation is like such an interesting challenge, you know. It seems like you have the whole story like laid out for you, and like how could you go wrong? But then there's actually almost more room to go wrong, you know, like especially when you're dealing with
a new set of challenges. Yeah, exactly.
What do you keep? Yeah, what do you keep? What are you willing to part with?
What do you cut out
without upsetting the purists? Yeah,
yeah. You have to structure it right. Yeah, some things don't translate from a book to a movie. They just don't. So you need to. Right. To work it out.
Yeah, obviously the way the story like flows is just entirely different. The condensed way a film comes together as opposed to a book.
Yeah. The way they adapted it for Lord of the Rings was great. I mean, those movies are paced perfectly. They go by, from what I know, I mean, I think they're like a little more action heavy than like the books are. But that's basically all I
think
know.
some characters are actually improved in the film as well. Like I think Boromir is a bit more going on to him.
Beaufort.
Yeah, little characters here and there.
Chad.
Beaufort, Biffo, Bomber.
Beaufort and Chad. Yeah.
Those are my favorite Lord of the Rings characters.
Chad Dwarf 3. That's the one I like.
Can the next question not be about Lord of the Rings, please? I'm trapped in hell right now. I need to get out.
No, that was the last one. Okay, how about this one then? From a no Juggernaut 5339. With the success of The Last of Us TV series, what film or TV series would you choose to adapt with complete creative control if you had the budget you needed to fulfill this project of yours?
Oh, I love that show. That's on. The third episode was great.
Haven't gotten to the third one yet, but
I just watched it.
Yeah, it's definitely the
great
best episode.
Show. Yeah, this it's like exactly how you adapt.
I feel like we should talk about it when the series is.
Yeah.
When the season's over.
It's a good adaptation. That's all I'll say. Really enjoy it so far. I think it's great. I was thinking about this because, I'm like, I love The Last of Us. I would adapt BioShock. I think those make good movies. Those would make good movies. The BioShock game.
See, I'm torn on BioShock because of the universe is really cool and ripe.
Yeah.
But I feel like so much of like the punch of the story is the fact that like you're controlling it. So I don't know how you could adapt that punch.
Even with Halo, there's stuff you could get out of it for sure. I think out of all the games I've played, probably Mass Effect seems the most ripe for creating like an interesting narrative story out of it. But
Mass Effect would be a good one. Yeah, could do like a good TV series.
Like it would need to be either professionally, succinctly trimmed for like a trilogy of movies or something, or be a TV show with the right production value.
I feel like it would have to be a show.
Yeah, well, what's cool about The Last of Us is like, because it's a TV show, they have more time. They like really elaborate on certain parts, which are like cool. You see before the infection and so on. It's like really interesting how they decided to adapt it. So I think you can adapt anything well. It's just how you do it.
Yeah.
The passion of people involved. I also just watched Dragon Ball Evolution to kind of compare the bad adaptations. And yeah, that movie's fucking awful. That's not how you do it. It's clearly they didn't even play the game probably. And yeah, silly names like Goku and so on. Yeah. You need good material, I feel. You need like good worlds and like characters to like base it off of. Last of Us benefits from like having a good narrative too, to adapt. And I feel like if you have that, you can do something interesting there. Yeah, like you could do something good with Halo. It's just, I don't know. They haven't done it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because with like The Last of Us, they're almost like treating the game as like previs for the show. It's like that faithful. But they find like new angles to approach it.
What they change is like interesting.
But you said Halo, and that would be my choice, man. I feel like you could. There was a time and place where you could have done something. Not now. I feel like it's too late now, and you've like fucked it beyond any repair. But there was a time you could have done something with it. You could have taken the imagery, the music, just the way they kind of would tell stories in those games. You could have done something with that and made it cool, like kind of a big spectacle, sci-fi action with the military angle and the religious. You could have done something with that. You could have, if you actually cared about the source material as much as like they do on at HBO for like The Last of Us. Not what they did.
I feel like
Halo
lucky
TV show.
that like game I actually liked was adapted well. Like it worked out this time. Makes me feel bad for like you guys with your Halo show, how it just came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two franchises for me if we're talking like complete creative control and also complete talent. Let's just imagine that I'm like some skilled, showrunner.
Yeah, with that caveat too. Yeah, that I'm like George Lucas or something.
Or creating a film or a TV show. It would two properties, Death Note and Mass Effect would be my ones that I feel like I would have the most grasp on what the heart of the property is and what works about it the best, just fan to art.
With a Mass Effect thing though, would you not have a bit of the same kind of issue with the whole like, would Shepard like be the lead character? Would he be a good guy or a bad guy? Like the decisions and the...
First of all, it would be FemShap.
True, yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I would have to, work out the kinks. I don't think that the most compelling parts about Mass Effect are whether or not you choose the Paragon or Renegade option. I think that, the world building is far more compelling. And so you could have like a layered character. I always play Renegade. I wouldn't want the character to be unrelatable if, let's say, I was adapting it to the a television show. I would make it so that they have some character, they're not completely sociopathic or anything, but that they're not, just somewhere in between, but not. They have to make tough decisions, and it's not always predictable what sort of decision they'll go with. I think that it should be like nuanced and interesting. So,
all right. Well, I guess that's that one then. Let's do this one. From a Goosey McGooseface 2. Do you chaps believe Rick and Morty will be able to continue without Justin Roiland?
They're contractually obligated to, so yes.
Yeah. What does it look like? I've been trying to like think about this ever since this story dropped, like, because it's not just Rick and Morty. Like, there's a bunch of these Roiland projects that have been like popping
Bye
off.
Bye
Like,
Squanch.
like that game just came out. Yeah, Squanch Games of Harm Life. Solar Opposites or whatever it's called. There's like a few.
Yeah, he's like responsible for a lot of shit, and I don't want to. I want to be clear. I'm not like delegitimizing any of the accusations or any of his bad shit that he's obviously shouldn't. I didn't even look up most of the allegations, right? So I'm not trying to make a commentary on that, but what I am saying is this is a guy who's like well connected and ingrained into animation. They just did the Poloni, Halloween special where essentially it was like, oh, let's give like 20 different animators this spotlight to showcase their work for Hulu. Just he's a very was a very like industry connected person that gave a lot of people a lot of opportunities. And so it sucks to hear that he's like, okay, wow, like an actual abusive piece of shit. I don't know every single accusation, but that, it seems like pretty serious and credible. So it sucks because now we lose all of those great things that they were contributing to art, even though like I'm not a fan of his whole like ad lib and do the Morty voice for every single thing that he was a part of. I was, I didn't play High on Life specifically because of that, because it's just annoying to me, and I really didn't like Trover Saves the Universe. But fuck, it sucks because he was helping a lot of, other animators get started in the industry. Like, he was not trying to say he was a good guy. I'm just saying that, there's some good things he did. It sucks. Mm-hmm. Shit sucks, man.
And like all these products that he was kind of headlining, their DNA is so intertwined with him. I don't really know what they look like without him.
You can get someone to impersonate Rick and Morty, right? If they're going to try to continue having the exact same voice anyway. But so much of the show is just him ad-libbing. Maybe the show will get better if he's not doing that, and and it's actually just like maybe the show will improve.
Yeah, maybe.
But it won't be the same show. Is basically the takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't know. I kind of feel like it should have ended a while ago, personally. Anyway, but
it's their most successful show.
It being like, that's the thing. It's such a so ingrained in pop culture at this point. Everyone knows these characters. They were just in that fucking Space Jam, weren't they? Like, they're everywhere.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, remind me of that shit.
The real question is, I guess if the show continues without him, it'll make people less ashamed to wear the merchandise. Maybe that's the.
Well, or does it not? How it's got that as well now, doesn't it? Like,
it does feel kind of weird.
You can't remove the association. Yeah,
we'll have to see where it goes.
Yeah, I really can't.
It's very interesting either way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Crazy.
They need to replace Justin Roiland with Chris Pratt. Done. Instant 10 out of 10 show. It would get so much better. He's so cool.
You shouldn't even try to do the voice. You should just do like Chris Pratt.
Exactly. Yeah, they start out season 7 or 8, and they're like, "Whoa, geez, Rick, I finally went through puberty," and Rick's like, "Oh, my voice changed too for some reason," and then they just keep going.
We went to an alternate universe where we sound like Chris Pratt now.
Yeah, we killed this version of. Yeah, I guess with a multiverse, you can just have any excuse.
Yeah, they could just say that. Yeah.
The Pratt verse.
With how self-referential they are, do you think they're gonna write it into the show?
I think they're gonna have to, unless they've got an identical sounding voice. I think that's gonna be the only way to do it.
I feel like that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I feel like even if they have an identical voice, they'll still acknowledge it somehow. It's like the whole style.
You just keep moving on.
Rick and Morty will be played by Maya Rudolph now. That's a good idea.
Oh, nice. Like the Eminem. Nice. Cool.
Exactly.
Hell yeah.
Who are they going to get? What's funny is Dan Harmon's doesn't have a great history either, morally, ethically.
Yeah, he's quite controversial.
He's kind of
himself.
He's been kind of a shitbag too. I guess not to the level of, what was it? Domestic assault and sexting 16-year-olds or something. I haven't looked into this shit. I have so much other shit I got to do. It sucks trying to stay aware of who's getting canceled for what. Fucking Ezra Miller's still creeping around, I guess.
It's hard to keep track of when in the same week it's Callahan and then this.
Yeah, fuck. Everybody's getting canceled.
Yeah.
All my friends are canceled, don't you know? All right. I don't know what to add to this. It'll be very different.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Maybe it'll be the same or better. It makes me want to see the show and what they do. I guess someone will post clips on Twitter. Maybe I won't even have to watch an episode. But
yeah, the morbid curiosity of it.
I stopped before season 4. I watched all the way up till the end of season 3, and then I did not continue because I just didn't feel like I needed to.
I think I got to about halfway through 4, then I stopped. Yeah.
It's just kind of the same over and over.
Mm-hmm.
But wubba-lub-dub-dub-dub.
I'm Sardonicast Rick.
I've turned into a Sardonicast.
Oh, man.
Oh my God.
All right, we got time for one more?
All right, should we do one more here? Another one from Goosey McGooseface. Can round it off. The Golden Raspberry Awards recently struck off 12-year-old Ryan Kiera Armstrong's nomination for Worst Actress in the Firestarter remake following backlash and condemnation. Former child actor Drew Barrymore, who was 9 when she starred in the original film, called it bullying. Obviously, you gentlemen are no strangers to criticizing bad child performances, but is it right to hold a child's performance on par with an adult and thus mock its poor performance? Is it indeed a form of bullying to nominate a child as a candidate for the year's worst acting?
I would only say yes because the Razzies are not a serious organization trying to accurately judge the worst performance in a year anyway. If they were actually serious about how they nominated and it was like some sort of stringent process of like, okay, we're actually watching, the worst movies of the year and this is how we actually feel, then it would be totally fine if that's the conclusion they came to. But I'm pretty sure you can just you pay a fee and you can vote for the Razzies. I think you can just I think that's how it works.
Like an official.
I think anybody can do it. I don't even think it's a real serious organization. They just one year they nominated every Bruce Willis movie or something, and then they apologized for that too, and they found out he had a brain problem.
Yeah. Mm.
This reminds me of when Quvenzhané Wallis was nominated for I forget what that movie was called. She was like a 9-year-old at the Oscars or something. The Onion tweeted out, "Okay, I guess we're going to say what everyone's thinking. Quvenzhané Wallis is kind of a C word that gets you demonetized on YouTube," and they apologized for that too. I thought that was pretty funny, but
I see.
Was that the Onion?
That was the Onion, I think.
Yeah, that was the Onion.
But that's satire. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
People talk about the Razzies all the time. I wish they would just ignore them because the Razzies are
they're
a
not
fucking joke.
Serious.
I hate the Razzies. Yeah, I just hate them. But
they don't provide anything meaningful to any discourse.
No, it's just so played out. Yeah, but it's just been around for so long, and they don't do anything. Yeah, I think this year they gave it to Blonde.
The Oscars are more legitimate than the Razzies. And I think the Oscars are often trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Razzies just doesn't justify its existence in any way. There's no point to it
Razzies
existing.
Awards. Razzie Awards nominations. Blonde leads films with 8 nods. Yeah. So it got nominated 8 times. Yeah, who gives a shit?
They nominated
Really?
Shelley Duvall for The Shining, Okay.
The only time I thought the Razzies were funny was when Halle Berry came on to accept her award for Catwoman.
Yeah. And then blamed her agent and then stopped appearing in movies for a while.
Well,
yeah, I mean, you could turn the Razzies into something more fun, but I guess I don't it just seems like this weird, they're not nominating the worst movies of the year anyway. They're nominating the most popular worst movies of the year.
Exactly. Popular, right.
I don't know. Bryce Dallas Howard seemed like the only one that was even trying in the new Jurassic World. So I don't know why she was nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just mean and pointless.
Yeah, it's so unserious that it literally is just an organization that's just it feels mean-spirited because it doesn't seem like they're serious about it anyway. Seems like that's the only point.
No, exactly. They're like a bunch of trolls. Yeah, they're like a bunch of trolls. Do you even like movies?
Yeah, it kind of feels like when we're talking about those those lists certain websites make, and how much of it is just to get attention and get the Razzies name some eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, stupid.
Yeah, didn't they nominated just real life people? Did they nominate Rudy Giuliani in the Borat movie or something? Just these weird kind of meme.
Oh, they did do something like that, didn't they?
These meme nominations that are just okay, you're not taking this seriously. 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 You're not ta What's the point?
They just make fun of a celebrity. They find like a couple celebrities they want to poke fun at for that year, right? It's like Adam Sandler, Eddie Murphy. They just like, let's poke fun at them for the year and then move on. It's like, that's all they do.
Not even the illusion that it's like any kind of legitimate thing.
Yeah, they seem more interested in just prodding at celebrities than anything to do with the movies, to be honest.
Yeah, if it was like they were actually picking the worst movies of the year, then it would actually be helpful. Could be like,
that'd be interesting.
Which movies to? Yeah, sure.
I would like to, if you wanted to curate the worst movies, and even if you had some sort of like qualification, like it had to be it had to have a theatrical run. That's like a low bar, right? That would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. You could have got like a panel.
I think someone should do that. Someone fucking replace the Razzies. Get a better award show.
Yeah. Like we could do that. We could have like a panel of like YouTube people to decide on the worst.
And you can have a worst awards show category, and every year you nominate the Razzies and they win.
Yeah.
It's always a tie between the Razzies and the Oscars.
420 Awards is... they're making some interesting choices this year by not releasing their awards show at all.
They forgot to do it.
Yeah, very, very bold, creative choice.
I think they scrapped it.
Yeah.
No, there's a few hopefuls left. Don't crush their dreams.
Sorry, everybody.
We're closer to next year's 420 than last year's, so I don't know what's going on.
Sad state.
Maybe he'll announce it. That's kind of funny.
So yeah, I guess short. You could make some. I want to include the perspective at least that like, yeah, you know, if you're a child actor, you shouldn't be shielded from criticism. You're like on the world stage, you know, whether or not it's them being responsible for being there or their parents being there. Typically, when I criticize child performances, I'm not criticizing the child being like, oh my God, how can they not act better? I'm not criticizing the child's abilities. I'm criticizing the adults for casting a child without the proper abilities in the role. Because that's what the child isn't responsible for being hired for the film. They were just in the film. So if their performance is unconvincing, it's on the adults, it's on the people that cast them, it's on, you know, the parents putting them in the
director.
film. That's who the blame falls on. So I want to make that clear. But yeah, at the same time, I would agree. It does feel mean-spirited from the Razzies. It's just because it's pointless. Like there's no reason you needed to do that. It would have been the same if you didn't.
Right. Well, we're like, we have opinions. We have like tastes. Like I don't just shit on every movie. I have movies that I like.
What?
It's not like, that's just all they do. They just shit on every movie. It's just, pointless is the word for it. Yeah.
All right. I guess that about does it for questions.
Yep. I guess so. Ta-da.
Whose recommendation is it?
Let's think it's yours.
It's yours, I think.
Death to Smoochy. That's right. You're goddamn right. It's mine. We're doing Death to Smoochy.
Finally, I can remove that from mine now. Then, because
right.
I was going to do it if you weren't.
It's just so quick. Yeah, just came right out with it.
People were asking for it. So,
which Death to Smoochy though? What year is it? The one from 1927 or?
Oh yeah, are we watching the extended cut?
Yeah, this is only 2002. Oh, it's that recent.
All right, there's one film called Death to Smoochy. It's directed by Danny DeVito, 2002. We're going to figure out what the fuck this shit is. We're going to figure out what's going on here.
So funny.
I'm scared. Terrified.
I know, it's like Barney.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm terrified.
Fuck.
It also looks weird.
All right. If you don't want to be spoiled for Death to Smoochy, watch it before the next episode comes out. These episodes come out every 2 weeks. You can listen to them early by going to sardonicast.com, sign up for premium. It's only $2 a month. Or go to patreon.com/sardonicast, same deal. We got merch, link in the description. We have a Sardonicast highlights channel. Go check it out. Go subscribe. It's on YouTube. It should be a link in the description as well. And I think, I believe I did not forget anything, actually. So here we are.
Oh yeah.
Why don't we Why don't we drag on this fucking podcast for another like 6 hours in the true fashion of fucking Hobbit movies? Jesus Christ. I'm so mad.
Yeah. It's just another extra hour.
I'm glad to be done with it. So
it is, the wrong type of adventure.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
The journey has just begun.
Happy Shrek or something. Bye.
Happy Hobbit.
Forever.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye. The end.